Self-replicating DNA computers are set to change everything. This is from Futurism.com by Neil C. Bahavzar and Abby Norman. So, in brief, DNA computers can create more storage as needed through self-replication, and their computing potential is insane. And I did the math on this. This is extraordinary, and I'm going to share it with you here in a minute. This is like Matrix 2.0 on steroids. I mean, not just battery source, but we're talking energy and memory storage. It's insane. So let me read this to you real quick. Researchers at the University of Manchester are working on turning strands of DNA into the next basis for computing. The quantum wave computers, the D-wave systems, in my opinion, aren't going to hold a candle to what these self-replicating DNA computers can do. So, scientists have actually created a DNA-based computing service that grows as it computes. While our current computers have a finite capacity for computations, DNA computers could be designed to self-replicate, making them able to create more storage as needed. Computers today have gradually worked up to being able to hold a few terabytes, but DNA computing can work at 100 billion terabytes. That's 100 billion trillion bytes. To top it off, all of that storage is guaranteed with just 1 gram of DNA. Guaranteed or your money back. While on its own, storage isn't the only benefit a DNA computer can provide. So, with a self-replicating computer, there's also the advantage of instant computing power. Now, in an interview with Popular Mechanics, lead researcher Professor Ross D. King, there is an illustration of a maze with 2 paths, one leading left and the other leading right. He explained that current electronic computers need to choose which path to follow first. Now, with DNA computers, they don't need to choose. They replicate themselves. It replicates itself and follows both paths simultaneously, thus finding the answer faster. Now, that's spooky. So, this is where it gets even more insane. What if the ghost in the machine has already turned us into these memory banks, these computers of enormous amounts of power and data and storage and just energy? Now, okay, here's the chart that shows gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, zettabytes, brontobytes. This is from phys.org. Self-replicating nanostructures made from DNA. Is it possible to engineer self-replicating nanomaterials? It could be if we borrow nature's building blocks. DNA is a self-replicating molecule where its component parts, nucleotides, have specific chemical interactions that allow for the design of self-assembled structures. In biological systems, DNA replicates with the aid of proteins. However, Jung-Hoon Kim and Junwei Lee from Shogo Hamada, Satoshi Murata, and Sung-Ha Park of Sunki Yunkawan University and Tohoku University have designed a controllable self-replicating system that does not require proteins. Their work appears in Nature Nanotechnology. That's insane. Literally gray goo. Welcome to the New World Order, where gray goo hooked up to the cloud is smarter than the average walking zombie that's been dosified, that's been fluorinated, that's been calcified the pineal gland to the utmost stupidity and ignorance oftentimes. Now it's going to get even creepier. Check this out. Kilohertz rotation of nanorods propelled by ultrasound traced by microvortex advection of nanoparticles. Nano. Try saying that backwards and then forwards and then backwards and forwards again. You probably could better than I can. Yet, with that said, if you go to pubs.acs.org, you can actually read about this. and I'll scroll down, give you a quick abstract here. You can see how this thing moves and how it measures. Now I'm going to share with you a quick excerpt, just a few seconds of a video. This is from CEN Online. Make sure to subscribe. Micromotors zoom through cancer cells. Now, this was published 3 years ago, although scientists haven't yet made a fantastic voyage through the human body, like Inner Space, if you saw that film. Good film, by the way. Dennis Quaid and Martin Sheen. No, not Martin Sheen. Martin Short. I am divagating from the subject again. They are taking inspiration from the 1966 sci-fi flick and trying to design self-propelling motors and rockets small enough to fit inside our cells. Well, check this out, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm going to have to... There we go. Just a few seconds here. Tiny gold nanorods that are being moved by ultrasound. Isn't that awesome? Those guys are cool. I give you props. Now, the scary thing is these things are moving around with an ultrasound, right? So look at this. Now, let's get back into somatics. You're going to see on the left a tortoise shell, the natural design from nature. And if you look to the right, you're going to see somatics that are created with sound, vibrations. You can do this with sand and various other elements as long as you have enough energy to move the elements with the medium that you are using. There are so many different patterns you can create just with sounds. Once again, that proves that in the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word is a sound, the sound is a vibration. As I say, oftentimes we all break down to these vibrational frequencies. That's what everything is, in essence, at least in a certain measuring standpoint. Now, I'm sure there's more than vibrational frequencies as well, so let me rephrase what I just said. So much of what we measure, we can use a frequency-based medium or a measurement of frequency to be able to figure out what something is in essence. Somatics. You guys should definitely look into that. So what if these somatics and stuff like that are in play, or that could be in play, blanket the world, blanket everybody with certain elements, and then use these somatic technologies with antennas, radio towers, cell phone towers, smart TVs, speakers, virtually anything could be used as a medium for somatics. I used to own a neurophone. I wish I still had it. I was broke a long time ago. I mean, it's happened many times before. I've never had a whole lot of money, but it doesn't matter. It's not all about the money, folks. But I remember many years ago, I had a neurophone, about 10 years ago, and I had to sell it because I needed the money at the time. After I had it for a while. And a neurophone, you can hook up these transducers essentially to your skin, and you can hear through your skin. That's the best way to describe it. You could be completely deaf and hear through your skin. It's a neurophone. I've heard people talk about it before. Well, I used to own one, and they're tough to get. I had a neurophone that was like blue. It was the previous generation, and then they quit making them, and I haven't found them anywhere. So I put it on eBay. Someone bought it from Japan years ago, and I'm going to get my hands on another neurophone again because those things are just awesome. I used to do binaural beats and different, I would listen to different tones and such and verbiage through this neurophone because it goes to the inner ear. It's not through your ears. It's really cool. It's bizarre, but it's really neat, and it's great for people that are deaf. So if somebody's deaf, you should tell them about the neurophone. Now, the self-stacking nanogrids, imagine these things are bizarre too. Since the 60s, okay, computer chips have been used and have been built with a process called photolithography. I hope I said that right. But anyway, they've gotten so small, you guys, that now IBM has these chips that are 1/10,000th the width of a human hair, and they want to make them smaller. So they're using these self-stacking nanogrids. Imagine the somatics and all these technologies doing something to create somatics within people and within nature and the environment. It's just bizarre, the kind of things that you think that they could possibly do with these technologies. The possibilities are endless, what they can do. Okay, now let's go back to, I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier about the DNA computers, because I think that I'm going to share with you the math. This is where it gets very interesting. It took me a few minutes to put this together. Okay, with a self-replicating computer, there's also the advantage of instantaneous computing power. Okay, I went over that with you guys. Apologies. This, if the ghost in the machine, if people turned into supercomputers, essentially, let's say that everybody somehow turned into this DNA machine for the machine, fractals within fractals within fractals within fractals, and it gets stuck within this Borg-like cube, essentially, symbolically speaking. Well, and it takes people's biology and turns them into computers. Have you guys seen Ghost in the Shell, where people are just uploading everything into their brains? They're plugging into the clouds, and then you've got these monks that are plugging into groups of people, and they're basically assimilating all their knowledge. They're assimilating all their knowledge, and they're all hooked up to these satellites and everything else, and it's just absorbing all the data into the brain. Well, that's not that far out. And I'm going to explain to you why. Because not only with the Neuralinks and stuff that they're building right now, but also I just did the previous podcast on what DARPA's doing, where they're literally going to download enormous amounts of data simultaneously, just boom, right into the brain. Because what this technology does is it creates synapses in your mind and different neural networks, and they're using chemicals in essence to do this. So imagine learning Chinese in like 10 seconds, or a millisecond. Imagine learning the entire Encyclopedia Britannica and chemistry and all the knowledge on science and psychology and neurolinguistic programming and all the occult knowledge that's been taught for thousands of years, all the way back pre-Sumerian times. And imagine if you were able to download how to play the guitar and the saxophone and every instrument on the planet literally within seconds. Then what would you do? After you learned everything, what are you going to do after that? So, with that said, what if, well, okay, I'm going off on a tangent here. I apologize. I'm deviating from the Ghost in the Shell. So you go back to Ghost in the Shell, and with Ghost in the Shell, essentially, there's this one mega man that was like a product of the military, and they tried, not of the military, of some corporation that was connected with the military for DoD applications, the private sector. So they tried to kill him. He got away, and then he wanted revenge. Well, if something like that goes down and people start turning themselves into supercomputers, or if a Borg-type system turns people into supercomputers, you've got approximately 7 billion people on the planet. Here's where I get into the math. So, 100 billion trillion is a sextillion. If you take 1 gram of DNA, and that 1 gram of DNA can be turned into 100 terabytes of information based upon the calculations of a DNA computer. 100 terabytes is 100 billion trillion bytes of data. Now, there's 64 ounces in a pound, and the average American weighs 178 pounds in North America. The rest of the world is about 138 pounds. So we'll use 150 pounds as a fair medium. You multiply the 150 pounds times 7 billion people, you get 1,050 billion pounds. Then you times that by 64 grams, so you get 6,720 billion times 100 billion trillion. And in essence, the amount of storage capacity with human DNA alone. This brings another question. Is it just human DNA? Are they using human DNA, monkey DNA? Are they using DNA of a donkey, DNA of a dolphin? What kind of DNA are they using? Could it be any DNA? Well, it is a vigintillion. We're in the vigintillion range, which is essentially 10 to the 63rd power. So put 63 zeros behind the 10. Then I think you need to multiply that by 7.7. So that is the approximate storage and data and memory that the DNA farm here on planet Earth currently holds, with the calculations in the beta stages of DNA computers. So imagine what happens when they come up with another breakthrough and they're able to store a trillion, sextillions with just one strand of DNA. The possibilities are endless, folks. This is incredible. We live in fascinating times, and things are just growing exponentially. Knowledge is power. Power is incredible, and use it for the right things. And let's keep balance. Let's keep this planet alive. Let's use these technologies for the right opportunities and the right purpose, not to create more control for the Borg. Question everything. LeakProject.com, YouTube.com/clandestine Time Lord. Thank you for being here with me. Be the change you want to see. Grey Goo. I've actually created a DNA-based computing service that grows as it computes. While our current computers have a finite capacity for computations, DNA computers could be designed to self-replicate, making them able to create more storage as needed. Computers today have gradually worked up to being able to hold a few terabytes, but DNA computing can work at 100 billion terabytes. That's 100 billion trillion bytes. To top it off, all of that storage is self-replicating. DNA computers are set to change everything. This is from Futurism.com by Neil C. Bahavzar and Abby Norman. So, in brief, DNA computers can create more storage as needed through self-replication, and their computing potential is insane. And I did the math on this. This is extraordinary, and I'm going to share it with you here in a minute. This is like Matrix 2.0 on steroids. Not just battery source, but we're talking energy and memory storage. It's insane. So let me read this to you real quick. Researchers at the University of Manchester are working on turning strands of DNA into the next basis for computing. The quantum wave computers, the D-wave systems, in my opinion, aren't going to hold a candle to what these self-replicating DNA computers can do. So, scientists has with two paths, one leading left and the other leading right. He explained that current electronic computers need to choose which path to follow first. Now, with DNA computers, they don't need to choose. They replicate themselves. It replicates itself and follows both paths simultaneously, thus finding the answer faster. Now, that's spooky. So, this is where it gets even more insane. What if, guaranteed with just 1 gram of DNA, guaranteed or your money back? While on its own, storage isn't the only benefit a DNA computer can provide. So, with a self-replicating computer, there's also the advantage of instant computing power. Now, in an interview with Popular Mechanics, lead researcher Professor Ross D. King, there is an illustration of a maze